Mostly cloudy, there's your showers with a chance of thunderstorms. 71, Paul Jerkins, News Radio, KFGO.
Well, folks, we're less than a month away, and as we've been doing for the last few weeks is trying as best we can to get as many of these candidates for the city of Fargo, whether that's for the mayor or the city commission, on this very program to introduce them to you. I'm going to remind you, if you missed Saturday's debate at KFGO, you can go to YouTube and watch that there, as we did host 2 debates for the Fargo City Commission, because there's 15 candidates, so we couldn't do it all in one stage. In the first debate, we had a number of candidates on there. One of them is Ahmed Shil, and he joins me right now in the KFGO studio. How you doing, Ahmed?
Great.
Thanks for coming on over here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Well, if people didn't get a chance to take in the debate, let's start with introduce yourself.
So my name is Ahmed Shil, and running for Fargo City Commission. I've been active in the community for the last 4 or 5 years. I am a senior community impact manager, a local large nonprofit in the community that's really active in the community. And, some of the passions that I carried from there really is the reasons why I'm running.
Sure.
Really on my platform, I'm focused on workforce development because, as you know, our state has a huge challenge and our local economy has, locally, it's really challenging. So childcare is another challenge that many families have. And that's something that I'm really, as a father, I know that that's something difficult for many families. Childcare accessibility is something that is huge, and I would say everyone should be pushing for that. Another thing that I'm running on is transportation. The city of Fargo, really, for a growing city, I think something needs to be changed with the way transportation happens in the community. I remember a few years ago, I worked on a transportation piece for something that really kind of confused me. Are you familiar with the industrial park?
Oh, yeah.
So did you know that the industrial park did not have transportation for over 30 years?
Somebody actually, because this is one of those key topics, we were visiting with another candidate just the other day and brought up transportation, and somebody texted into 35270 saying, Tyler, it makes no sense that for all the jobs that are at the industrial park, there's not a route, there's not a public transit means for people to get to and from work there.
Right. That was a couple years ago before I led an initiative to actually get service in that area, absent of 30 years. And now, looking back in 2 years that the project has been there, it's over 15,000 riderships. More individuals are able to apply jobs there, to support their families. I mean, there's over 20,000 jobs in that area. Really manufacturing industry there. So to have a lack of transportation was a huge problem. And I know that exists in many other areas in the community. If you want an economy that grows, you have to remove the barriers in the community. And that's something that I'm really focused on.
The 3 things you just touched on, workforce, childcare, transportation, a lot of them go right hand in hand.
Yeah.
You don't have someone watching your child, you can't go to work. If you don't have a way to get there, you're not going to work.
Exactly.
Being a community involved individual and visiting with other people, is there one that stands out as this is the top priority? I mean, is it childcare? Is it transportation? Because the jobs are there.
The jobs are there.
Yeah.
But what we have to know is to actually have elected leaders that are in touch with the community, that know the challenges in the community and the barriers. So a way to remove barriers that a community has, such as childcare, to make it more accessible, transportation, make it more accessible. You need leaders that are connected to the community, working with our community has massive resources. And I say that because I work at a nonprofit, and I see the challenges that we solve every day to prosper families. So I would say if we have leaders that are elected, that are more focused in the community, doing community-focused work, any challenges can get resolved. Just to go back on that Tap Right. So Tap Right is the project that's the on-demand service that we put in there. Prior to initiating that, every single person I met with the city from the metro bus from the community said it's not going to work. And I understand it's cost effective to put bus route in a 5 mile larger area every road. But when you bring the right people to the table, you can have solutions. And that's what developed. We were able to do an on demand service that reduced cost and still got people to their work.
Are they still saying this isn't going to work? Because I mean, if you're talking about 15,000, rides out to the industrial park, to me it seems like that's a pretty big success. There's 20,000 jobs out there.
Exactly. So it was a pilot first year.
Uh-huh.
I knew from the beginning it would succeed because of the need that's in that area. But talking to the employers in that area, talking to the community, after the first year it was a success, and it grows every year. In the 15,000, it's probably higher now because that was a couple months stat that I got.
Mm-hmm. Well, very good. Ahmed Shill's my guest. He's running for the city of Fargo to be on that commission. The 15 candidates, 2 spots. He's one of those 15. One thing that because I have your website, Ahmed for Fargo up, homelessness being an issue as well. We've talked about the need for affordable housing for quite some time. Unfortunately, when we have those periodic checks to see, what's the population of our homelessness, we're going the wrong way.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about trying to address that, what ideas do you have?
Where the key thing to address a community issue is work with the community. As I said earlier, we have massive resources. And by that, I mean we have dedicated individuals that are working in different sectors, from businesses, from employers, from nonprofits. But when you have the right people to the table, things can get solved. And I know for a fact that, a lot of our non-local nonprofits do the same work. They are focused on eliminating those barriers that the community has. So there's a lot to highlight.
Well, and I know you're right. There's a lot of nonprofits that are doing that work. And I think, and I could be wrong, and I don't mean to offend any of them that are doing that good work, it seems as though the collaboration across those nonprofits has gotten stronger over the last couple of years.
Yes.
That they actually talk with each other, because I have a nonprofit background many years ago, helping people nonprofits find housing, employment, and it seemed like everybody was kind of in their own bubble.
Mm-hmm.
And like you say, to be visiting with the community, get them involved, I think goes a long ways. And having somebody at the city level to actually probably implement some of that is a key in getting something done here, Ahmed.
Right. So just to use that example, I think, collaborative effort is something that works. And through the work that I do in the community, that's something that I really do emphasize by bringing other stakeholders together to actually have the issue we're focused on be solved, because not one person can solve an issue, but when you have a collective voice, collective minds, you can solve the issues.
Ahmed Shill, my guest again, running for the city of Fargo, the commissioner. Ahmed, one of the things that keeps getting thrown at me in this studio, and certainly I'm sure you as a guest, is when it comes to taxes, when it comes to special assessments in particular. Have you put any thought into what should be done, if anything, on the issue of special assessments?
That has been a heavy topic around many candidates. As a homeowner, I definitely see the burden that it does put on families. And if the solution arises, I'm all for it. But we cannot go around and say we're going to eliminate at this moment. But as I go back to that word of collective voice, collective impact, when you have the right leaders to actually solve, focused on a solution, there is something that can get solved. So when you bring those voices together, when you have those right leaders together, there is a way to solve, even when it comes down to special assessment. Because I say that, that eliminating, I'm for it. Reducing it, I'm for it. Because I know as a homeowner, that's a huge burden. When we were looking for a place to live, or that was one of the things that we had to consider and look. Because of the cost. I mean, it's a second mortgage, basically.
Well, and there's people that have been throwing around, well, look, we got to eliminate it. Then the question comes down to, then how do you pay for the infrastructure needs? And I know that there's been some ideas thrown out there. Have you given thought as to if, and I know you said we can't do this right now, and I'll nudge that you just did say that. Do you have a preference on then how we fund, those needed improvements when it comes to infrastructure?
It would take a study, to really focus on how to do it. It's a benefit that can benefit many families. It's a burden to many families, but we need to find that solution so that all residents in the community are benefiting from that as well, because it really does affect, you have to make those choices of buying a house, renting a house. Our rent it's constantly going up. Our wages are staying the same. So, there's ways to fix things, but it just takes the right leaders to really focus. And I'm one of those leaders that really want to focus on solving the issues.
You got a little bit more time for me?
Sure.
Very good. I got to take a quick commercial break. Ahmed Shill's my guest. He's running for the city of Fargo. Part of that commission is what he wants to be. We'll ask him some of your questions. If you have any, send those into 35270. We'll ask him when we come back right here on Afternoons Live, just getting started on a Wednesday afternoon. You got locked into KFGO Fargo. Fargo commission candidate, but we've been getting a number of calls off air about a potential incident at a local restaurant. For all those that are calling in, I appreciate that. I'm not going to throw it out there right now just because I don't want people gawking at what's going on. Our news team is looking into it, but we've had a dozen phone calls saying, hey, do you guys know what's going on at this place? We don't know. We're aware of the presence of law enforcement and some things. Once we know, we will report it to you, but we're not going to start gossiping. But for all of you that did take time to call and say, hey, do you guys know what's going on? We don't, but we appreciate your tip out there. You're the eyes for us. We don't even have a window in the KFGO studio, but I assure you, once we do find out, we will share it with you. In the meantime, I'm going to get back to my guest, Ahmed Shill. He's a candidate, as I said. We touched on specials. You touched on workforce childcare. One other thing that has been discussed is law enforcement, whether that's morale, or speeding and drag racing's now been on the minds of a lot of people. The fact that we're getting people calling in saying that there's a potential incident as well that has law enforcement. I mean, we're getting more of those reports as far as police activity here, which makes people think, well, maybe crime's on the rise. We don't. Is it too early to tell? We don't know, or at least I don't know. But law enforcement in general, Your perspective of it. How are things going? Do you want to improve or change something?
Let me give you my thoughts on the raising.
Okay.
Two thoughts come to mind. One is fear because I have kids. The other is, are we in the 50s? Are people getting excited for open roads? But as a parent, that terrifies me, and especially in the areas that it was mentioned. I drive on those roads every day. And having kids, and you want your kids to be independent, go play in the front yard, but then you have that worry that in the back of your mind that if hear a car, what is happening? So that's terrifying. But to really answer that question on safety, on specifically to that, I think it really comes down to I know I mentioned workforce, but it really does come down to workforce. Does our police department have the right bodies? Do they have the right individuals and capacity that they need to go out and enforce this? If you have the strong workforce, especially in the police department, and you have supported officers, and you have enough officers in staffed, then you have the capacity that you are securing, safe neighborhoods. You are bringing that safety into mind. I think it's really something that has to do because of the recruitment efforts and the lack of the staffing in the police. So that becomes a challenge. And then to go back to that, it's a really safety concern issue, but you have a lot of free time individuals if they're doing that. So what are we as a city really focused on? Why? I mean, since the pandemic happened, a lot of safety issues has risen, right? And but a lot of people are out of work.
Well, and so I'm glad, one, that you clarified the workforce in the first part being workforce of law enforcement. We had a caller in yesterday that was listening to the debate, and when that question was brought up, he goes, the workforce aspect it needs clarification. I'm kind of cleaning up what our caller said, saying, well, that answer doesn't make sense when it comes to drag racing because those vehicles are paid for. They're probably not mom and dad's. I think some of them are souped up a little bit, and we really focus on the actual law enforcement side. So to hear you say we need probably more police officers. We need better recruitment. The one thing is, do we need stiffer penalties if you get caught drag racing? For those people that are out there and they're putting not only their own lives, your kids' lives, and everyone else. I mean, do the penalties need to be more stiff?
Yes, they do. If you ask me this as a teenager, my answer would probably be different. But as a parent who is worried about their kids, I would say yes. The penalties should be heavier, specifically to those. Because it's dangerous. It's putting the lives of officers responding at risk. It's putting the lives of the commuters at risk, residents at risk, and it's a safety issue that's really affecting the whole community. And our city leaders really do need to put a focus on it, on how to support their law enforcement safety.
Matt, I've only got about 30 seconds here. If people want to learn more about you, your candidacy, where do you suggest they go? Do you have website? Well, obviously you got a website. Yep. I have that up. Facebook. Now's your opportunity to let them know where that is.
So my name is Ahmed Shil. To learn more about me, you can visit my website, Ahmed for Fargo. That's Ahmed, AHMED FOR Fargo.com, or you can follow me on Facebook, Ahmed for Fargo.
Very good, Ahmed. It's been a pleasure to get to know you a little bit more. I look forward to visiting again soon.
Yes.
Ahmed Shil, again, you can go to ahmed4fargo.com, learn a little bit more about him. Again, yes, we have been notified about police presence, heavy police presence at a location in South Fargo. When we know more, we will relay that to you. I appreciate all you people tipping us off here, and yes, our news team is aware. I'm Tyler Axis. You got Locked In Afternoons Live right here on KFGO.
News and weather this hour brought to you by Laney's, your one-stop solution for all of your plumbing, heating, cooling, electrical, duct cleaning, and sewer and drain needs. Laney's, nobody does it better.
Fargo-Moorhead, we have a partly sunny sky. It's 72 degrees. I'm Paul Jerkins. A report of a potential shooting on the west side of Fargo at the near Plaza Azteca. That is a Mexican restaurant off Veterans Boulevard. Police are on that scene. No indication of any injuries there. West Fargo school parent also says that they were told that schools in that general vicinity are not being dismissed on time. Again, a report of a potential shooting off Veterans Boulevard at or near the Plaza Azteca Mexican restaurant. And no reports of any injury at this point to any customers or employees. But police, Fargo police, and perhaps West Fargo police are on that scene. Recent disclosures show a massive gap in campaign contributions between Fargo's mayoral candidates. Shannon Roars-Jones outpaced her opponents by a wide margin, reporting over $120,000 in total contributions. Nearly half of that came from a $55,000 donation Roars-Jones made to her own campaign. Even without that personal contribution, Royce-Jones reported contributions more than doubled those of Hakun Dabar, who reported the next largest total at over $32,000 in contributions. Mayor Mahoney came in close behind with nearly $30,000, while Arlette Preston reported less than half that amount. Michael Borghi and Sherry Furco both reported under $1,000 in contributions to their campaigns. 72, this is KFGO News. '72, this is KFGO News. The West Fargo Police Department is in the process of applying for a 50% matching federal grant to cover part of the cost of body cameras for its officers. Police Chief Dennis Hotterness says a strong majority of the cameras are in favor of the officers, that is, are in favor of the cameras, and they are long overdue. The Fargo-Moorhead, Dilworth Police Departments and the Cass and Clay County Sheriff's Offices have those body cameras. There is a plea deal in the case of a former Minneapolis officer charged in the death of George Floyd.
Former cop Thomas Lane will admit to aiding and abetting manslaughter, with prosecutors dropping a charge involving unintentional murder. Former officers J. Alexander King and Tu Tao are facing similar state charges. All three have already been convicted on federal counts of violating Floyd's civil rights.
That is reporter Laura Oakes. The plea came less than a month before Lane was scheduled to go on trial with the two other former officers on the state charges. Derek Chauvin was convicted of killing Floyd and given more than 22 years in prison. And again, Fargo and West Fargo police have responded to a short time ago to a potential shooting off Veterans Boulevard. The initial call was to the area around the Plaza Azteca restaurant off Veterans Boulevard. No confirmed reports of any injury to anyone. Law enforcement is working that scene, and we will collect more information here shortly on what has taken place there. Our KFGO Weather Center forecast 74, partly sunny, chance of showers, thunderstorms this afternoon. Yep, 46, partly to mostly cloudy overnight. Tomorrow, a mostly cloudy day, areas of showers, chance of thunderstorms, and 62. 72, Paul Jergens, News Radio, KFGO.
Before we get our friend Rusty Alverson with our Farm and Ranch reporting here, just keep it locked into here, 790 AM, 94.1 or 104.7 FM. As you just heard Jergy, the police have responded to reports of shooting at Plaza Azteca. We'll give you all the latest. Just keep it locked in. And again, now that it's out there as far as location, don't go rubbernecking. That's the last thing the law enforcement wants is you going driving down there and trying to get a look for yourself. But we'll tell you and paint that picture for you through these airways. But for everybody that reached out, trying to inform us, I appreciate it. I really do. Thank you for being part of the team here and making sure that we are aware. And our news team, number one in the business for a reason, on top of it. Rusty Alverson is in the KFGO studio, part of the egg news that you've been working on all day here.
Yeah. Good looking hat. Like your shorts.
Thanks. They're not jean shorts nor cargo. But I have a feeling I could answer this for you.
Sure.
Cargo shorts or jean shorts?
Cargo.
Wow. Okay. I would have suggested wrong. I would have thought for sure you'd say I'm a jean short guy.
Me?
Yeah.
No.
Not even the one with the loop for your hammer or
Well,
for your
that's different.
chain.
Okay, that's different. Are we doing yard stuff? Are we working?
You're just out having a night on the town.
Then it's cargo.
Okay. All right. Well, let's talk wheat.
Okay. Well, the Wheat Quality Council's annual Hard Red Winter Wheat Tour is underway this week. And day one, scouts saying that they found about 39.5 bushels per acre, kind of in line with USDA projections for Kansas. Been dry down there, Tyler. Been dry in Kansas, parts of northwestern Texas, also western Oklahoma. Ray Grabansky, the president and lead market analyst of Progressive Ag in Fargo, says recent rains have improved prospects for some growers down south, but problems still exist. No, all of this is in focus, of course, because of the situation in Ukraine and the prospects that will have reduced global production on a global scale. And so not only are we focusing on the results of this winter wheat tour that's underway in the South, we're also focusing on planting progress in the North.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lack thereof in some spots.
Yes.
I was hearing earlier about the seemingly, and I think it was from Frey and Olson, perhaps you or Sarah were visiting with them. I know I heard on KFGO, and it had to be one of you two, talking about how it felt like there was almost as far as planting progress, that divide, from the west and the east because of the precipitation that we've got.
That is correct. Yeah. Better progress in the west compared to the east for sure.
Rusty, I appreciate it. I'm going to let you go, and you come on back next hour?
Yeah, we'll talk more about the Ukraine situation, and we'll be listening to updates from the news center.
Yes, and thanks again for all you listeners that were sending in notes about and calling in off air, letting everyone know about what's going on. But we are on top of it, and when we actually have confirmation from our law enforcement on what did happen and what has transpired as far as an arrest if needed, we'll let you know right here on KFGO. In the meantime, CBS National News on the way. Stick around. More Afternoons Live right after this. know more information about what police presence down in South Fargo or Southwest Fargo, Veterans Boulevard, and even further south. We don't have any updated information from what Paul Jurgens just did provide, but we will let you know when we get more word on that. In the meantime, we're going to head on out at this time, as we typically do, and visit with our friend Bill Werner, Capitol correspondent, Minnesota News Network, but a friend of Afternoons Live. Bill, you had a long, eventful weekend, and eventually we had Mr. Jensen winning that Republican nomination for governor. Was it all handshakes, kumbaya? Is everybody getting along in the Republican Party after the weekend?
Well, we'll see what happens. I mean, the convention was not real long on decorum in spots. You know what I mean, Tyler?
Yeah.
There was a fierce battle for the endorsement for governor, and after 9 ballots, Scott Jensen's the guy. But there was a fair amount of contention in that one, and we'll see if unity comes out of it, or how quickly unity comes out of it. I mean, I think some substantial portion of the delegates are in agreement with the decision, but there are folks who are not happy with it. So we're going to have to see what happens.
Well, and I know on the convention, we're going to do so again this Friday, that there was a pledge that other candidates would abide by the nomination. Have you heard anything otherwise, or are we still holding to that pledge?
Well, so far we're holding to that pledge. Now, it remains to be seen what happens, except in the Attorney General's race. Now, that's an important race just in the context of what happened with George Floyd. But yesterday, Doug Wardlow, who was one of those who was vying for the endorsement, and it was actually the Republican Party's candidate last time around, okay, he said that he will challenge the candidate who was endorsed at the convention on Friday, Jim Schultz, in the August primary for Minnesota Attorney General, and we had a bunch of back and forth about broken promises, and then Wardlow said, well, there were backroom deals that stole the endorsement from me. It's the kind of usual exchanges that occur when you have at political conventions, when you have folks who aren't getting the endorsement when they want it, and that certainly happened in this case. So they're going to have a primary in August, the Republicans, to determine who is their candidate for Attorney General, who goes to the November election up against incumbent Keith Ellison.
Well, and one thing that when I was visiting with some of the local candidates about the convention Friday, before we switch gears, talk about this end of session, is there a deal? When you have a record number of delegates, and that seems to be taking place across the country when it comes to the Republican side, I mean, there's some optimism, but it seems like there's a lot of first-time participants as well that probably get frustrated with the process, but also I get the sense that some of them are, well, if I don't get my way, I'm going to take my ball and go home. And I'm sure that there's other Republicans saying, please don't do that. We need you if we, in fact, want to take over the governor's office and, of course, the attorney general's plus others out there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, there's that factor in every convention, where folks are dissatisfied and deals are cut and some people are angry about it. And whether that was more or less so this time, I don't know, but certainly I think you're correct in that large percentage, a good number of the delegates were there for the first-timers, and therefore this is kind of new territory for them, and it made for a very interesting convention. It made for traction. Candidates like Kendall Qualls, as an example, and Mike Murphy getting perhaps more traction than they might have under normal circumstances, playing the "hey, I'm an outsider, I'm not part of the establishment" kind of card. I'm not a rhino. Is what the term was obviously used fairly often there, and that got a little more traction perhaps than usual, just because of the mix of delegates being a larger percentage than usual being first-time delegates.
Bill Warner, our guest Capitol correspondent, Minnesota News Network. Legislative session is going to be wrapping up. Is there a deal? Yeah. I mean, it seemed like, hey, we got something in the works here, but is it actually signed, sealed, delivered, or is there still a little tension as we try to get as much done here?
Sure. Yeah, there's tension because of the deadline. They have to be done. The legislative session has to adjourn on Monday, but they can't pass any bills on Monday, according to the Constitution. So Therefore, the real deadline is 11:59 p.m. on Sunday night. So let's see, where are we at here? Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So we got about 4 days remaining. And the governor and legislative leaders on Monday morning, and they were hinting. I talked with Senate Majority Leader, Republican Majority Leader Jeremy Miller at the convention on Saturday, and he was, hinting pretty strongly, not to the point of maybe telegraphing, but I mean, the things that he was saying, you could tell that they were moving, that they had a path toward a deal, right? And they actually announced something on Monday morning, and it included, a key part of it is $4 billion, that's with a B, $4 billion in tax relief, that coming from the budget surplus, $1 billion for education, and they're going to leave about $4 billion of it uncommitted, so then whoever wins in November gets to decide how to use that. But the details of those, the $1 billion for K-12 education, the $4 billion for tax relief, they're still wrangling with those. They're wrangling with those as we speak. A lot of backdoor negotiations, closed-door negotiations, trading of offers, and again, the tax area. The governor has maintained that he still would like to see Walls checks, those one-time tax rebate checks. The Republicans say we want permanent, ongoing tax relief. The Democrats say we need to have tax relief that is targeted at families, working people, lower-income folks. So those are the differences there. But even so, yesterday, late in the day, Republican Majority Leader Miller indicated that, not without specifically saying it, but he acknowledged, I think, or didn't have to read between the lines very far, that he realized that those permanent tax cuts that they're talking about, and also what they want is a total rollback, a total elimination of state income tax on Social Security benefits.
Say, Bill.
But some of that, he seemed to acknowledge that some of that might have to be rolled back somewhat, scaled back.
Bill, I'm going to jump in here, and I'm going to put you on hold because as we were mentioning that there has been an active situation here in Southwest Fargo. Paul Jurgens, our news director in the KFGO studio.
We don't have a lot of hard information, as we reported at 2:30. Initially, a report of some sort of a police incident, perhaps a shooting off 45th Street near the Plaza Azteca Mexican restaurant. Mm-hmm. Since then, we have spoken to West Fargo PIO, Public Information Officer. She didn't have a lot of information. I had mentioned at 2:30 that at least one West Fargo school, I should say, West Fargo, was told that the students would not be released on time. And reporters Don Haney and Madison Quinn are on the street and working on this. I did talk to Greg Schildberger with the City of Fargo Public Information Office, and he didn't have any solid information either. So we don't know exactly what's taking place and what's transpiring now, but we do know there's a law enforcement presence on the west side of Fargo and into West Fargo as they investigate whatever this is. But it sounds like there's some sort of an ongoing incident, and we just don't know. Don't have anything solid, and we don't want to speculate as to what has taken place and what's going on now.
Yeah, well, and that's what being in this chair right now, because there's people calling in with some of the speculation, and I'm not going to share any of that as of now. I'm going to leave it up to you as the news team to, whenever we get information. But if you're not getting it from the law enforcement, it's tough to really throw much more out there.
Well, they're in the midst of it.
Yeah.
And so
no doubt.
They'll get some information out, but I think they're still working this case, and they don't have a lot of information that they have time to release. I've been in touch with attempted to be in touch with a number of law enforcement sources, and they're not responding because they're assisting. So whatever this is, we don't know of any injury to anyone at this point, so that's kind of where we're at. It's something took place, and it's an ongoing investigation, and as to how this will all end or whether this is ongoing, we really don't have any solid information. Again, Don Haney, Madison Quinn, KFGO News are attempting to collect information, too, as they are out near the scene of where the initial call was.
Very good. Jerry, you don't ever shy away from coming back in once you get more information. I do appreciate that. Our team's working on it, and as you just heard, once the information is provided, we will share that with you. I'm just going to get back to Bill Werner just briefly. Bill, I'm up against the clock here, but I tell you what,
yeah.
we've got this the situation unfolding. I got a good weather update, but Friday, you and I are going to be probably covering a convention again, I have no doubt.
Oh, yeah, the Democrats are down in Rochester, same venue, and that's going to be a coronation. A lot of people are saying, of Tim Walz as their candidate, but that'll be something that we'll be covering on MNN also.
Well, I tell you what, we'll chat again on Friday so we can make up for a little bit of a lost time today, all right?
Very good. Best wishes for that situation, and we'll hope for as good an outcome as possible.
Yeah, very good. Bill, I appreciate that. You take care. Bill Werner, he's our friend, Capital Correspondent, Minnesota News Network. I got to get you this weather update. We will keep you in the know when we find out ourselves as to what exactly did happen and what is going on down in South Fargo, Southwest Fargo. You got to locked into Afternoons Live on KFGO. Don't go anywhere. And, of course, Paul Jurgens in that KFGO News Center, who is working with Don Haney, Madison Quinn, who are out on scene of, the reported shooting incident. We don't have a whole heck of a lot of information. And I get how frustrating that is for some of you, for many of you, especially when you are hearing that schools not going to be getting, children out on time. I understand. But, there's a lot of speculation being sent into this studio, and I just refuse to share speculation. We'll get it from law enforcement when they are able to provide that for us. And I do. I get that can be very frustrating, but I just think that that's the appropriate way of handling this right now. But we do know that there was an incident, Plaza Azteca, which is down on South Veterans Boulevard, and there's law enforcement that have been on scene, and they're working out and still getting through this ongoing investigation. But we'll break in and tell you whether we've got an interview going on or if it's just you, me, this microphone, and your cell phone. We will get you the information. Tyler, do we know if there's a danger to the public, or have they arrested the shooter? Well, we just heard from Paul Juergens that don't have a whole lot of information. But I, as far as the danger to the public, I have no doubt in my mind that we would have been informed about that, because he did have contact with law enforcement. They did not say that, and I have no doubt that it would have explicitly said that if that were in fact the case. But again, just for everyone that has reached out to let us know that something was going on, I appreciate you. That's you come here for news first, and that's why Paul Juergens, Don Haney, Mazza Gwen, Tasha Carvel, number one for a reason, and we will follow along. But again, I just want to reiterate, for everyone that's sent in A, B, or C, it's not that we're ignoring it. We're just not going to be sharing speculation until we hear it from law enforcement and our news team as well. Here's what's coming up a little bit later on in the show. We do have a conversation with Chris Atterbury, and actually the Minnesota Twins are in action right now, and they're up 3-0, 3 runs to nothing against the Oakland A's. This is the final game of that series. I had to visit with Chris a little bit earlier on, who, I don't know, I got maybe 3 hours of sleep because of the West Coast stretch that's going on. I have no doubt they're going to be ready to get back out of there. And this is a promising start. But that's going to be brought to you by Linex of Fargo-Moorhead. You can find them on Main and West Fargo. And, of course, Jiffy Lube. You can get more done in a Jiffy with their 3 area locations. CBS National News on the way. We'll have that conversation. Also at KFGO.com, it was reported earlier, the funding and financing for Fargo mayoral candidates. We'll break in to that as best we can. But again, keep it locked in here for all the latest about the ongoing situation down in South Fargo. I'm Tyler Axis, and you're listening to KFGO. All right, here's what's going down. We're going to get you caught up with the KFGO news, the latest on the large police presence that was surrounding the Plaza Azteca Mexican restaurant down in Southwest Fargo, South Veterans Boulevard. Several squad cars in the area. Paul Jurgens will get you the latest of what he knows. I know you're all waiting to hear, but we did have a caller off air visit with Eric Johnson, who's my producer here on Afternoons Live. Accident up on I-29.
Yeah, it sounds like we've got a something going on I-29 northbound, north of Buxton. The caller said right around mile marker 123. Two semis in the ditch about a half a mile apart, and a pickup upside down in the road still. He said emergency services were working on that pickup, probably trying to clear that out. But if you're anywhere heading north on 29, just be aware there's probably going to be a slowdown or a stop in that area.
Well, and if the radar indicates anything, they might have had a little bit of a weather out there. I don't know if weather related or not, but certainly the conditions not ideal in parts of the KFGO listening area. So you got an accident, I-29 northbound and north of Buxton. You've got South Fargo. You got police investigating an incident from starting at Plaza Azteca. Keep it locked into KFGO. We'll get you all the latest and more. In fact, we'll do that right now with Paul Jurgens in that KFGO News Center.
And we have 69 in Fargo-Moorhead. Still a large police presence in parts of Southwest Fargo and West Fargo. This started near the Plaza Azteca restaurant. That is on 28th Avenue South, of 5500 block, probably an hour or more ago. Several squad cars responded to that scene, and the parking lot was sealed off. We've also learned over the last little while that West Fargo police were also situated outside Cheyenne High School. Police have confirmed there was some sort of an active crime scene. Whether that was in Fargo or West Fargo, we do not know. We don't believe there are any injuries at either location. But again, the information is very sketchy. This investigation is ongoing. It may have extended now into western Minnesota. Exactly what has taken place, we do not know. Reporters Don Haney, Madison Quinn are tracking developments late this afternoon in both Fargo and West Fargo. We do know that West Fargo police are part of this, along with the sheriff's departments in Clay and Cass counties, and likely the state patrols in both Minnesota and North Dakota. This began in the parking lot or near the parking lot of the Plaza Azteca Mexican restaurant. That is 45th Street, essentially, in South Fargo at 5505 28th Avenue South, and it has branched out from there. And again, police have not provided any solid information as to exactly what has taken place. They consider this an ongoing investigation, and it sounds as though there may be some activity now in the Clay County area that may be related to this. Our KFGO Weather Center forecast before we return to Afternoons Live. 74 or so, partly sunny, maybe some showers, thunderstorms overnight, partly to mostly cloudy, 46, 62 tomorrow. Mostly cloudy, some showers, thunderstorms are a possibility. 69, Paul Jurgens, News Radio, KFGO.
Typically at this time, we'll be visiting with Chris Atterbury, the studios here at Minnesota Twins, but we got news to report. Paul Jurgens pops from the news center into the KFGO studio. Active day there, Paul.
Yeah, this is just in from the West Fargo School District. We were given indications earlier that Cheyenne High School, that there was some police action there involving this incident that started earlier. And as of about 10, 15 minutes ago, the school district relaying messages from West Fargo police that the person they were looking for has left the metro area. Thus, schools that had been placed in at least perhaps a lockdown or a precautionary status, Freedom, Independence, Liberty, Cheyenne, and West Fargo, that has been lifted now. And the students and staff were kept indoors, but now that has been cleared. Dismissal at Freedom and Independence is a little later than normal. Buses will run, but again, anything that was having to do with West Fargo schools has been resolved, and indications are that whoever they may be looking for in connection with this earlier incident has left the metro area, and we are getting some indications that this investigation has extended into western Minnesota, perhaps Clay County.
Okay. Well, Jergy, I appreciate it. You're best in the business for a reason there, ladies and gentlemen, and keep it locked in here. Good news. And that tells you that they know exactly who they're looking for, at least what they are driving, if they are saying that, and if the West Fargo School District's at the advice from the West Fargo Law Enforcement Police Department, schools lockdowns are going to be lifted, so everyone will be able to get home just a little bit later than what is perhaps normally the case. I do want to reiterate something else that was called in from a listener off air as well, the Road Warrior Reports. You can join that anytime at 237-5948. That's the Laney studio line. And if you can text in safely as well, you can do that at the iConsultants of North Dakota Text Club, which is 35270. But a caller did call in during our CBS News update about 11 minutes ago that at mile marker 123, I-29 northbound, that's going to be north of Buxton, that there was two semis involved, a couple of, well, not a couple miles, not very far apart, that were in the ditch, and that there was a pickup that was flipped on its side, and that they were working on that scene as well. So if you are heading I-29 northbound at mile marker I-123, expect delays, I imagine, as that is going on there. And plus, you know what? There's also some weather in the area, that nothing that has been severe by any means, but something that has tripped off some advisories. And I know that Too Tall Tom Schmansky's got an updated weather forecast for you in about 30 minutes time that we will get to you. And he did tell you that today there's chance for thunderstorms. Well, a couple of those are moving in. In fact, that's kind of the pattern here as I'm looking at his forecast right now from the Weather Cave, that tomorrow, chance of thunderstorms, chance of showers Friday, chance for a few sprinkles Saturday. That's during the Fargo-Moorhead Marathon. Sunday, chance of frost in the morning because, yeah, it's going to be cooling down out there. So we'll get you all that throughout the meantime here. Actually, and a lot of us are going to be heading up a little bit north tomorrow. We got Coffee with KFGO May 19th. I want to thank Vision Ford Lincoln of Wapaton for sponsoring our Coffee with KFGOs. We're going to be at Hillsboro. We're going to be at the Goose River Brewing. Typically, they're brewing a nice, cold, frosty beer for you, but they're not going to have that ready at 7 a.m. tomorrow when we show up. So expect a nice coffee brewed with all that extra love. So they're going to have that. There's going to be some rolls, and all that is on us. So you just have to show up, and you're all invited. You're going to have the morning crew. You're going to have Part of It Takes Two. You're going to have News and Views with Joel Heidkamp. I know that I'm going to be popping up. You got some of the Farm and Ranch team. I think, in fact, both of the Farm and Ranch team. You got some of the news team and so much more. So if you are in the area, or if you decide, you know what, I'll go on up there. I want some free coffee. I want some free breakfast. You're going to be able to do so at the Goose River Brewing tomorrow. Again, thanks to Vision Ford Lincoln down in Wapaton for sponsoring our Coffee with KFGOs. 237-5948. You can call in. Whatever you want to get off your chest. We pushed back our conversation with Chris Atterbury, just knowing how fluid this very situation is on a number of things, whether it's this law enforcement thing, the accident up on I-29, or just weather-related things. We'll get it all to you in the know. I do want to visit a little bit with you about a variety of things. There was primary elections across, I think, 5 states last night. Not all of them have been decided as of yet. In fact, Pennsylvania, the nomination for the GOP Senate race is a little too close to call. They're talking about an automatic recount potential. Mail-in voting, well, you want to talk about that again? Some people that were harping about that in 2020 are certainly relying on those mail-in ballots being counted in 2022. We'll talk about that also. We didn't get into the Fargo-Moorhead diversion court case the other day, and I have campaign disclosure statements in my very hand for all those candidates that are up in running for mayor. A couple of surprises here. One not being the fact that you got leading the pack by a lot, meaning the amount of money they've raised, is Shannon Roars Jones. And I'm looking at, if I got this right, about $117,000 in the account. I don't know that I dare say raised when about $55,000 was provided from Shannon Roars Jones herself. So we'll get you some of that, some of my takeaways. Does it at all matter to you? There's a reason why you're getting flyers. There's a reason why you're seeing some television ads as well, because when you got that amount of money raised for the city of Fargo mayoral race, you can do a lot of things with that. I'm going to take a break here. We'll come back to whatever you want to get off your chest. We'll just have an open forum for you until we do get some resolution, hopefully sometime soon, about the incident down at Plaza Azteca. That, as you just heard Paul Juergens say, because of the release from the West Fargo Public Schools, that the suspect is not to be believed to be in the metro area. So those schools in West Fargo that were under lockdown, that lockdown has been lifted. Students, staff, faculty will be able to leave just a little bit later than is typically the case. So we'll play it a little loose here on a Wednesday afternoon. I'm Tyler Axonis. You got it locked into 790 AM, 94.1 and 104.7 FM, KFGO.
And I hate to say it, but there's evidence here of a shooting out in the parking lot here. I won't go any further on that, but a number of the detectives are here, and they're still going around on the south side of Plaza Azteca here. The main door, I believe, faces to the west towards Veterans Boulevard here. There's a couple of buildings in front of us, and then Plaza Azteca is on a small road that goes, it's called Uptown Way South. But they have detectives here that are going through it. A number of police walking on the south side here, where there's a porch, a sun porch with tables and that. And the officers are going through it, combing it. I'm assuming they're probably looking for shell casings. That would be my guess. Again, that's a guess. But again, I've seen it enough where I know that the police are going through this area with a fine comb, and hopefully we'll be able to get some more information. They continue to measure the area here with, and I believe I see Chief Wolski with the officers there, so hopefully we'll get enough information. He'll be able to debrief us here in a little bit. Madison Quinn is also with me. He's sending some photos in, some photos, get some idea of exactly what's going on here. And again, it looks like they're starting to move to another area where we can get a briefing. So I better get going here, but we'll keep you updated as fast as we can. It's raining out here a little bit, and it's blowing wind like crazy. So if you can't hear me, that's the wind.
Well, Don, this open phone line is yours. When you get more information from the police chief, you call right back in. We'll make room for you.
Will do.
All right, thank you. Yeah, Don Haney on location of, as you just heard, the shooting that appears to be down at the Plaza Azteca Mexican restaurant, South West Fargo. That's Veterans Boulevard. Hearing that there is evidence of that he didn't want to go into any further down there, but hearing that Police Chief Dave Zabolski is down there and they're going to be holding a briefing, it sounds like in a matter of minutes. So when that does provide some more information, we'll get that out for you. Knowing that he had to run to that potential briefing, I didn't get a chance to ask him because obviously that is a crime scene. I'm going to remind you to not go drive down there and gawk at said crime scene down on that location. That's the last thing that this law enforcement needs as this investigation is underway. And I know that there's been reports about police presence in other parts, perhaps in Clay County. We have not had anything verified on that as of now, whether related or not. But that was the line of questioning I was going to ask Don Haney is, obviously with the West Fargo School District, they do believe that this suspect is no longer in the metro area. And I was curious as to how they are so confident about that. But hopefully that press conference does get a little bit more information for us, because I know there's a lot of questions out there for you, especially when it comes to public safety. But that would have been, I think, indicated rather upfront from, it's not only the Fargo PD, you got the West Fargo PD, both involved. And if, in fact, this did get on to other areas, I have no doubt that there's other agencies involved, perhaps the Highway Patrol from both states as well. Because if, in fact, this went west of the river, then you got an entire different state involved, which is going to carry a lot more to it in this situation. But again, keep it locked in here. You got Paul Juergens right here. He's our news director. He'll jump in when he needs to. Don Haney, Madison Quinn, both on location at Plaza Azteca. And when those do have more information, whether that's on location or right here in the studio, we will share that with you. 237-5948. That's Laney's studio line. You can call in on anything. You can also text me at the iConsultants of North Dakota Text Club. That's at 35270. One thing that I'm going to just throw this out there a little bit again, as we're just keeping everything as loose as we can. Whatever you want to get off your chest, I'm here for you. But we'll have our conversation with Chris Addery because I do want to thank Linex of Fargo-Moorhead and, of course, Jiffy Lube for sponsoring that weekly check-in, which we will get to the last game of that series against the Oakland A's going on right now. And then I think they're in Kansas City. But can you imagine being like Royce Lewis, you having a great series, having a great stretch here, and then you got people coming back from injury, and then all of a sudden you're getting sent back on down. I asked him about that, and we'll get some of that information as well. 35270. Some of these that are coming in, as I said, I don't want to share speculation on anything, but some of these have some more detail about it. But I tell you what, I want to be as careful as I can because I don't want to share any wrong information. If you have information that you want to get in here, you can text it. Please don't be offended if I don't instantly go with it just because of the fluidity of the situation when you got law enforcement doing an ongoing investigation at an apparent shooting that happened at a Southwest Fargo restaurant. And I know people want to get word out, and I appreciate you wanting to be involved, but I'm trying carefully to make sure that we have verification on some of these from our news team that is, in fact, either trying to or have been in contact with law enforcement to get you all the latest here. Tyler, low-income people in Minnesota do not pay taxes. They get money back. They never paid in. That's coming in, and I'm curious what money getting back you're speaking of. I'll let you clarify a little bit for me, and I'm not sure if that's in reference to our conversation, albeit very truncated and brief today with Bill Werner. As that session is wrapping up, they're trying to find a way to cut some form of a deal. One thing that we didn't get to talk about, and we will on Friday, because Welton's Tire Service of Lisbon wants us to tell all sides of this political theater that's going on in 2022. We've got a deadline in the Minnesota legislative session until, midnight on Monday? And I know Bill was counting the days that are left, but to take into account that you've got the leader of one of those chambers and all those lawmakers and the governor of Minnesota, they've got that convention going down in Rochester. And don't kid yourselves, they're not going to change anything about their schedule because there's a legislative session that's going to need to wrap up later on Monday. So if you take that into account, you've got the rest of today, you've got the rest of Thursday, and then you're not going to have Friday or Saturday, maybe not Sunday. So you really only have about 3 days left, the way I see it, as an observer here on the western side of this divide, that is the Red River, that to get something done, it's not 5 days. It's going to be a maybe 3. And that comes down to tax cuts. That comes down to those hero checks, all of those things that are left on, and the unique situation because these conventions are going on. That tells you, obviously, and you already know this, that it is an election year. So we're going to have some people wanting to get something done so they can campaign on what they accomplished out in St. Paul, and you have others that are going to want to prevent it from happening so they can say, look what was not done, and that's why you need to send more of us out to St. Paul to get the work done for you. That's why you got to vote for us. So that whole dynamic certainly going to play a role in all of this. But back to this tax, I'm not sure if that's what you're referring to when you say low-income people in Minnesota do not pay taxes. Certainly they pay sales tax. If they own property, they're paying property tax. I assume you're suggesting income tax. But again, I'm going to get back to the situation at hand here. KFGO News right around the corner. Paul Jurgens will let you know any information that has been updated, if there is any information. For those that are sending in what you have had sent to you, because of perhaps your employment or because you have a child in the school system, I appreciate it. Just want to vet it a little bit more before I share it with the KFGO listening audience. I'm Tyler Axonis. This is Afternoons Live on a Wednesday afternoon, and our KFGO time is 3:27. We'll get you locked in with some of the latest news. And, of course, you're listening on either 790 AM 94.1 or 104.7 FM KFGO.
News weather this hour brought to you by Rick Electric. Proud to serve the Fargo-Moorhead area since 1964. Day or night, they're here for you. Find them at rickelectric.com.
Fargo-Moorhead, 71 degrees at 3:30. I am Paul Juergens. And again, I've been tracking this incident in Fargo, South Fargo. It began about an hour and a half ago. Fargo police are investigating a shooting that took place at a South Fargo restaurant at Plaza Azteca, Mexican restaurant. That is in the 5500 block of 28th Avenue South. Now, the general manager of the restaurant says a woman and a baby were shot both inside and outside that restaurant. No word on their conditions. KFGO's Don Haney is outside that restaurant as well.
There's evidence here of a shooting out in the parking lot here. I won't go any further on that, but a number of the detectives are here, and they're still going around on the south side of Plaza Azteca here. The main door, I believe, faces to the west towards Veterans Boulevard here. There's a couple of buildings in front of us, and then Plaza Azteca is on a small road that goes, it's called Uptown Way.
KFGO's Don Haney outside that restaurant in South Fargo, and the general manager again said that a woman and a child were shot, but all restaurant employees are okay. Now, shortly after the report of the shooting, 4 schools in West Fargo were placed on lockdown following a report of a potential gunman in the general area. A search was conducted, and it was determined that no threat existed. People attending a track meet at Cheyenne High School said about 300 people were sent inside the gymnasium as a precaution. Freedom, Independence, Liberty, and Cheyenne High School were all part of that lockdown, but as we reported before 3 o'clock with Tyler Axness on Afternoons Live, the Eau Claire has essentially been given there. We understand, according to law enforcement sources, that the investigation is now extended into Clay County as the search for the suspect has expanded beyond the metro area. 71, this is KFGO News. '71, this is KFGO News. Recent disclosures show a massive gap in campaign contributions between Fargo's mayoral candidates. Shannon Roars-Jones outpaced her opponents by a wide margin, reporting over $120,000 in total contributions. Nearly half of that came from a $55,000 donation Roars-Jones made to her own campaign. Even without that personal contribution, Roars-Jones reported contributions more than double those of Hukun Nabar, who reported the next largest total at over $32,000 in contributions. 2 men died after fleeing from an attempted traffic stop in the Twin Cities and later crashing into a pickup. Police in Coon Rapids tried to make that traffic stop. The driver took off and pursued the car. This was just after midnight, but broke off the chase once the vehicle crossed into Winoka. The driver was dead at the scene of the crash. His passenger died at a nearby hospital. The driver of the pickup was treated for minor injuries. Again, recapping our top story this afternoon, still a developing story. It all began around 2 o'clock or so. Fargo police responded to a reported shooting at the Plaza Azteca restaurant. That is in the 5500 block of 28th Avenue South. The restaurant general manager told KVRR television that a woman and a baby were shot there. He said the shootings happened inside and outside the restaurant. All employees are okay. We have no word on the conditions of those shooting victims. Then shortly after that, schools in West Fargo, 4 of them, were placed on lockdown, following a report of a possible gunman in the general area. A search was done. It was determined that there was no threat there. And sources in law enforcement are telling KFGO News here within the last 30 minutes or so that the search for the shooting suspect is now extended into Clay County, into eastern Clay County, with law enforcement from Clay County, Becker County, and others involved in that. Fargo-Moorhead near 74 this afternoon, partly sunny. We'll have a chance of showers and thunderstorms. We have some scattered activity on radar, primarily in northwest and west central Minnesota. Partly to mostly cloudy overnight, 46. Tomorrow, 62, mostly cloudy. Areas of showers and a chance of thunderstorms. Fargo-Moorhead 71. Breaking news first. Paul Juergens, News Radio, KFGO.
terrible update on what witnesses have seen down at Plaza Azteca, but we'll get you more. I've got forwarded to me, the community incident resolved near West Fargo schools. I want to thank the individual that emailed that to me. There was someone else talking about an email that went out to an area employee or employer and the employees there as well. But because I haven't had that confirmed yet, I have no doubt that you're just sharing with what you perhaps received yourself. But we'll get you all the latest once we have confirmation from law enforcement and our news team on that. Rusty Alverson is in the KFGO, so he's part of the Farm and Ranch team.
Yeah.
We're talking wheat concerns last hour. You got more wheat conversation to come right now.
Yeah. Ukraine's wheat production and exports this year, Tyler, probably going to be limited due to Russia's attack on that country. According to a new report that came out from Oxfam and Save the Children, more than 23 million people are experiencing extreme hunger in Ethiopia, Somalia, and Kenya, and that war in Ukraine does not help. Prices of cooking oil, for example, from sunflowers, much of which comes from Russia and Ukraine for that part of the world, has doubled in price for people in East Africa, according to that report. Now, Ray Grabansky is president and lead market analyst of Progressive Ag in Fargo. He was hosting a guest of the NCI's new We May Have Something.
Yeah, we'll come back to that.
Yes.
Paul Jurgens comes into the KFGO News Center. Paul, you got some more?
KFGO reporters Madison Quinn, Don Haney reporting that the suspect in this shooting, I guess, has perhaps not been arrested, but has been located in Clay County. As we reported, there were indications that he was in that area, east of Moorhead, general location there. And, he may not be in custody. They believe he is in a vehicle, and that is ongoing there.
Okay.
We'll have a briefing up on our KFGO Facebook page and KFGO.com shortly from Fargo Police Chief Dave Zapolsky, Madison Quinn, preparing that as to what took place here and is extended into Clay County. But they have the suspect either in custody or will be shortly, or at least that's the hope.
Very good. Paul Jurgens, news director at KFGO. There's the latest for you. Know where he is, and hopefully that does come to a complete resolution here in a matter of moments here. Clay County, and again, now that's confirmed. I know there's been people that have been texting that in, that there's parts of the incident in Clay County. That's what we're reporting on, but now confirmation. So thanks for everyone with those eyes out there as well. Rusty, you were talking just about the prices of cooking oil, sunflowers, all that, because of this. The bread basket of that area is Ukraine. They haven't been able to get out there and do that. So the hunger issue is being amplified in parts of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, the Northern Crops Institute hosting a webinar. Ray Grabansky was the guest, president, lead market analyst of Progressive Ag in Fargo. He says that market analysts and producers are watching very closely. So we'll see what kind of numbers we come out with actual planted acreage at the end of June. And it will be interesting to see actually what we do get into the ground.
Yeah, well, and there's a whole lot of things that go into that, of course, with weather as well. But they're optimistic there. They're talking about, we'll be around the clock to get things in here in the next few days.
Yes, absolutely. And we thank those guys for listening in the tractor, in the truck, whatever you're doing in the shop, and just be safe.
Rusty Alverson, appreciate your work, man.
Yep.
We'll chat again tomorrow, all right?
Yep.
Rusty Alverson, Sarah Heinrich, multi-award-winning journalist of agriculture. You can go to KFGO.com, check out more of their work, to click on that agriculture tab. And as Paul Jurgens just told you, that there's going to be a briefing locally here. That means what happened at Plaza Azteca in a matter of moments. And Madison Quinn's going to be covering that at, sounds like the KFGO Facebook page and KFGO.com. But also, in a related note, in Clay County is where they do believe that they have the individual, and whether he is in custody or they are in custody, or hopefully soon will be. We'll let you know when that does get resolved. CBS National News on the way. We'll come back and keep you posted about all the latest of this situation and other local things. Next, right here on KFGO. Stick around.
in the same area. Actually, it was in the 4100 block of 66th Street South. They came and found the stolen car with well, at the time they weren't sure, but they found the suspect's vehicle was there. It had been ditched. And apparently he had taken that stolen vehicle and then headed out. Announcements went out through all the law enforcement agencies to be on the lookout for this vehicle. It was spotted in Moorhead. A pursuit ensued. Moorhead and Clay County Sheriff's deputies continued the pursuit for some distance outside of Moorhead. We don't know exactly where at this point because that story is not yet fully completed here. What he told us is as the pursuit continued, we don't know what highway or what road it was on, if it was on Highway 10 or whatever, but it was east of Moorhead. He crashed the vehicle, and as we were just doing this interview with him, the chief here this afternoon, he said at this point the suspect, the man, was at least at that point still in the vehicle, and they're calling in SWAT. They're not sure if if he's injured or if he's still in the vehicle. More than likely armed. They're being very careful on it. So this incident is certainly far from over. We have a lot more details from the chief here. Chief Dave Zabolski will be passing along to Paul Juergens in the newsroom here, but it was about 5 minutes of dispatch, and then he had to leave. But the police are still here. As I indicated earlier, they were outside the restaurant here, and they were scouring the area looking for more shell casings. But it appears the shots were fired inside the restaurant, and I asked the chief if there were other people in there, and apparently people were fleeing, but there were still people inside the restaurant here, Azteca. As it appears, nobody else was injured, but both the woman and her child, an 8-month-old child, were wounded in the shooting. What led to it, we don't know at this point. There's a lot of stories going out. I've heard a bunch of the, I don't know if we want to call them rumors, but a lot of people are talking out here about what exactly happened. But apparently they're known to each other, whether or not they were married or friends or whatever. At this point, we don't know, but we'll continue to follow up. And Police Chief Zabolski said hopefully they would have some additional information, including the incident that apparently, at last word, was still underway in Clay County, east of Moorhead, where the suspect, the man that was firing the shots, is still in his vehicle out there, even though it crashed.
Don, and the last word was that the SWAT had been called and were probably on the way to that crashed vehicle out in Clay County.
That is what he told us. Yes. At this point, they want to be very careful. Again, they don't know his situation at this point, and whether or not he's alive or injured or whatever is going on in that vehicle that was stolen and headed out into Clay County.
Don, you call back in the moment you got any more information. We'll keep this line open for you. All right.
Will do. And Jordy will have some more details here as we pass along the story here. So
right.
Thanks.
Great work out there. Yeah, thanks. Don Haney, one of the great KFGO News reporters. Madison Quinn also out on location. I know that he's been providing updates on KFGO's social media pages. Paul Juergens is the KFGO News director in the News Center. Going to get you all the latest. So to recap what we just learned from Don Haney, and not good information, but at 1:46 is when calls were made to law enforcement about a shooting Plaza Azteca, where a 23-year-old woman shot in the upper body, wounded, critical but stable, according to Police Chief Dave Zabolski. But also in this incident, as these shots were fired, an 8-month-old also wounded, but in stable condition, as the last reported. The shots continued because she was trying to flee, and the suspect eventually fled. Switched vehicles, pursuit from Moorhead east, where I know a lot of you are texting in potential locations where that vehicle has crashed. Stay away from that vehicle. I know there's some people out there that are texting in, certain lake areas. Their roads are going to be closed. Silver Lake, for one of them, comes in Clay County. But SWAT is going to be on the way if they are not there already, because we don't know the condition of the suspect who fled east of Moorhead. But to think about all the coordination that you just heard from Don Haney, from it being where it was at Plaza Azteca and Southwest Fargo, to have that, then to have the call go out to all area law enforcement, to have then that pursuit picked up in Moorhead, and then to have Clay County get involved. And now knowing that SWAT is getting involved. That is an area of coordination that I think we can be proud of, and hopefully this does, in fact, get resolved very soon. And when it does, we'll be the first to tell you right here on KFGO. I'm going to get you a weather update from Too Tall Tom Szymanski. Don't go anywhere. We'll get you all the latest here on this incident. I'm Tyler Axenis. This is Afternoons Live, and you're listening to KFGO Fargo. Strike upon us, and we'll get you caught up with CBS National News, and of course, get you the latest information from Paul Jurgens, who, as you just heard Don Haney called in on location at Plaza Azteca, that Jurgy would get more information in there, and if he does have anything brand new, he'll relay that, but I'm sure he'll recap everything we just heard from that check-in from Don Haney as well. The final hour, well, of course, because of this fluid situation, that means we're going to keep the show pretty fluid. You can call us, 237-5948. That's the Laney studio line. And, of course, this text club, as many of you prefer to contact us by, is provided by the Eye Consultants of North Dakota, and that's at 35270. Hopefully we'll get a chance to connect with Chris Atterbury here in the final hour, but quite frankly, we want this resolution or this situation to be resolved, so that way we can get it out for you. So that peace of mind, that security that everyone in this area needs, as we have been able to provide some of that, especially in that West Fargo area where this had initiated. That schools are now back to allowing everyone to go home. I'm sure many of them are, in fact, on that way as well. I'm going to kick it back to the phone lines here in just a moment because I see I've perhaps our very own Don Haney calling in. I'm going to imagine out here, or I'm getting that wink and nod. Then perhaps in a little bit we'll get all that. But I did see that the Twins are up 6-2, I believe, over the A's. 6 runs. That individual not coming on, Eric? Okay, very good. Live radio, ladies and gentlemen. When things are as fluid and as uncertain as this, we just roll with it. I'm going to roll into this next hour, as I just told you. Hopefully we can get our conversation with Chris Atterbury. I'm still hoping that I can also get you these last pair of tickets to Kansas I have. I won't keep it simple for you today. If we have time, this is a very poor attempt at a tease. But if you hear Carry On Wayward Son, you just got to be caller number 5 to 237-5948. And then you and a friend or a spouse can get on over to Shields Arena. That is Saturday, May 21st. Doors going to open at 7:30. So you can watch Kansas Point of No Return tour. We've been sending a number of people over there, and I want to send you over there as well. But hopefully we get to that today, and I trust that you understand if we don't because of the situation. And in fact, we'll do it tomorrow if that's the case. And boy, do we have a show ready for you tomorrow as well, because we have a variety of things. We've got Spencer What's Your Meat Dude. We have got Devil's Lake Tourism. Ted Attorney's off this week, but we've got another outstanding individual that tell you all about the ice, or not. Why do we keep wanting to go ice fishing? I'm so glad that is long behind us. It's open water, baby. They got the docks in up on Devil's Lake. They're out there catching. I've seen the photos online. But they'll tell you about where you can go and catch a fish of your own, especially the walleye up there. We got Audibles, and, of course, Proof Artisan Distiller is going to be in studio telling you about all their products and where you can check them out as well. I'm Tyler Axis. This is Afternoons Live. Fluid afternoon as this situation unfolds and continues to rapidly unfold here. We'll get you all the latest here in the last hour on a Wednesday afternoon. This is KFGO. You got us locked in on your radio dials at either 790 AM, 94.1, or 104.7 FM, KFGO. Over to Paul Jurgens in just a moment, get you the latest on this ongoing situation. Well, that has now ended up in Clay County. But since it is 4:05, we'll do a couple of fact checkers at 4. These are things you probably have seen online. We'll tell you whether or not they are true or not, and whether you should or should not be sharing them around. This is one I've certainly seen throughout Facebook and Twitter. Did Fox News and Candace Owens tweet about ivermectin's Hingas? On a tweet, conservative commentator Candace Owens retweeted a Fox News article about, quote, ivermectin's Hingas being long-term bowel and urinary inconsistence for users. And the reports that Candace Owens says, well, that explains a few things. Been seeing that all over, neither of which are true. That's not a real tweet from Candace Owens, nor is it from Fox News. Now, speaking of Fox News, here's another claim. Fox News talk show host Tucker Carlson called U.S. Rep. Dan Crenshaw, the Republican from Texas, Eye Patch McCain during his show just on Monday. That is true. I'll talk more about that, but I got to get you over to the important news from Paul Jurgens in the KFGO News Center.
KFGO News, Fargo-Moorhead, 72 degrees. I'm Paul Jurgens, and the latest on that shooting in a South Fargo restaurant this afternoon that extended into Clay County. Fargo Police Chief Dave Zabolski, a short time ago, speaking with KFGO's Don Haney outside Plaza Azteca Restaurant at 5505 28th Avenue South.
At about 1:46 p.m. today, our officers were dispatched to the report about a shooting at the Azteca Restaurant in the 5500 block at 28th Avenue South. Upon arrival, we located a 23-year-old female who had a gunshot wound to her upper extremities. She was immediately treated by our officers and conveyed to Sanford Hospital, and she's currently in critical stable condition. They did excellent work in getting her to the hospital quickly. Also shot was her 8-month infant who had gunshot wounds to extremities, who is also at Sanford and in stable condition. This appears to be a known suspect who is already identified. There was some type of an incident inside the restaurant, and the suspect pulled out a handgun and began firing at the female as she ran through the restaurant and then tried to escape out the outside exterior. He continued to fire at her in the parking lot and ultimately struck her. He then left the scene in his vehicle. Again, following our officers' response and quickly getting that information from the many witnesses that we are thankful were here and provided some critical information to our officers. We were able to identify the vehicle, put it out on the radio for our other officers to identify. As we were checking the area, we had a report of a stolen vehicle in the 4100 block of 66th Street. At that location, our officers discovered the original suspect vehicle and immediately were able to connect the stolen vehicle to the suspect. That information was broadcast to all adjoining jurisdictions. Shortly thereafter, the vehicle was spotted in Clay County, I believe Moorhead, and then Clay County, Minnesota. Clay County Sheriff's Department initiated a pursuit of that suspect vehicle.
And a Red River Valley SWAT was called to that scene. The location in Clay County has not been disclosed by the Sheriff's Office. We do not know the exact status of the suspect, but believe the person is in custody, perhaps. They are no longer actively searching for that suspect. That might be the best way to put it at this point until we get confirmation. But again, this shooting started about 2.5 hours ago, extended through Fargo, the investigation, and then into Clay County, where the suspect has been detained, according to law enforcement sources. Earlier during this investigation, 4 West Fargo schools were placed in lockdown: Freedom, Independence, Liberty, Cheyenne. At that point, there were indications that the person may have been in or near those schools, and that was quickly determined not to be the case. And shortly before 3 o'clock, West Fargo police confirmed that the person who was sought in the shooting was not in the metro area and, in fact, had left the metro area, and things at those schools in West Fargo did return to normal. KFGO reporter Don Haney still working the story this afternoon, along with KFGO reporter and videographer Madison Quinn. We'll have the very latest coming up. KFGO.com, KFGO 790 104.7 and our KFGO Facebook page. Fargo-Moorhead near 74 this afternoon. Partly sunny. We have some showers, scattered variety. Northwestern Minnesota primarily into the west central part of the state. 46 overnight, partly to mostly cloudy. Areas of showers, mostly cloudy, maybe some thunderstorms tomorrow, 62. 72 degrees. Paul Juergens, News Radio, KFGO.
All right, folks, here's what's going to happen. It's 4:10 on a Wednesday afternoon, and the Linex of Fargo-Moorhead, find them on Main and West Fargo for truck accessories and so much more, and Jiffy Lube with their 3 convenient locations right here in Fargo. They sponsor our Talking Twins. Chris Atterbury, the studio host here, Minnesota Twins, because the Twins are in action right now, and they are up 6-2 over the Oakland A's. We caught up with him earlier, but as has been the situation all day today. We're well aware. We've been keeping you in the know of the situation. Well, we've got you all the latest. So we're going to play back this conversation we had earlier with Chris. But I assure you, if anything changes, if Don Haney calls in or if Paul Juergens, we're going to pull away from that conversation. We'll get back to you with everything you need to know because obviously this is the top of mind. But let's get you this Talking Twins for a Wednesday afternoon with Chris Atterbury, your studio host of the Minnesota Twins right now. Fast approaching 4:30 on a Wednesday. This is KFGO Fargo and the KFGO News. Director Paul Jerkins will get you all the latest information, as we have been telling you first and foremost about the situation that started in West Fargo, has ended up over in Clay County. He'll get you all the latest there. Then this final half hour, whatever you want to talk about, I'm here for you. I'm Tyler Axis, and this is Afternoons Live on 790 AM, 94.1 and 104.7 FM, KFGO.
News and weather this hour brought to you by Laney's, your one-stop solution for all of your plumbing, heating, cooling, electrical, duct cleaning, and sewer and drain needs. Laney's, nobody does it better.
You have a partly sunny sky, Fargo-Moorhead, 70 degrees at 4:30. I'm Paul Jerkins. A man has been detained, at least in Clay County, this after a shooting in South Fargo this afternoon. The shooting happened at the Plaza Azteca Mexican restaurant at 5505 20th Avenue South. This shooting took place shortly before 2 o'clock this afternoon. Fargo Police Chief Dave Zapolsky.
At about 1:46 p.m. today, our officers were dispatched to the report of a shooting at the Azteca restaurant, the 5500 block at 28th Avenue South. Upon arrival, we located a 23-year-old female who had a gunshot wound to her upper extremities. She was immediately treated by our officers and conveyed to Sanford Hospital. She's currently in critical stable condition. They did excellent work in getting her to the hospital quickly. Also shot was her 8-month infant who had gunshot wounds to extremities, who is also at Sanford and in stable condition. This appears to be a known suspect who is already identified. There was some type of an incident inside the restaurant, and the suspect pulled out a handgun and began firing at the female as she ran through the restaurant and then tried to escape out the outside exterior. He continued to fire at her in the parking lot and ultimately struck her. He then left the scene in his vehicle. Again, following our officers' response and quickly getting that information from the many witnesses that we are thankful were here and provided some critical information to our officers. We were able to identify the vehicle, put it out on the radio for our other officers to identify. As we were checking the area, we had a report of a stolen vehicle in the 4100 block of 66th Street. At that location, our officers discovered the original suspect vehicle and immediately were able to connect the stolen vehicle to the suspect. That information was broadcast to all adjoining jurisdictions. Shortly thereafter, the vehicle was spotted in Clay County, Moorhead, and then Clay County, Minnesota. Clay County Sheriff's Department initiated a pursuit of that suspect vehicle.
Fargo Police Chief Dave Zapolsky filling in some of the details of this shooting at Plaza Azteca Mexican restaurant earlier this afternoon. Again, the search did extend into Clay County. There is no longer an active search for a suspect. His status, though, has not been confirmed, identified as a 24-year-old Fargo man known to the woman who was shot inside and then outside the restaurant. 70, this is KFGO News. "70 degrees. This is KFGO News. A former Minneapolis police officer has pleaded guilty to a state charge of aiding and abetting second-degree manslaughter in the death of George Floyd. As part of the plea deal, Thomas Lane will have a count of aiding unintentional murder dismissed. Lane, along with 2 other former officers, has already been convicted on federal counts of violating the civil rights of Floyd. Derek Chauvin was convicted of murder last year and pleaded guilty to a federal civil rights violation. Chauvin was sentenced to more than 22 years in prison in the state case. Recent disclosures show a massive gap in campaign contributions between Fargo's mayoral candidates. Shannon Royce-Jones outpaced her opponents by a wide margin, reporting over $120,000 in total contributions. Nearly half of that came from a $55,000 donation Royce-Jones made to her own campaign. With just days left to pass bills before the Minnesota legislature adjourns, Democrats and Republicans continue to negotiate how $4 billion of the surplus, the number legislative leaders and Governor Walz agreed on, should be used for tax relief.
Democrats want tax credits for families with children and property tax relief for seniors and renters. Among the governor's agenda items is Walz checks. Republicans want across-the-board permanent tax cuts and no state income tax on any Social Security benefits. $4 billion is not enough to pay for all of these items.
KFGO News Capital correspondent Bill Werner. Fargo-Moorhead tonight, partly to mostly cloudy. We expect an overnight low of 46. Tomorrow, mostly cloudy, areas of showers, chance of thunderstorms 62. Those winds diminishing tonight. Friday, cloudy, windy, chance of showers 52. Partly sunny, windy 70. Paul Juergens, News Radio, KFGO.
CBS National News right around the corner. Then I'm coming back to whatever you want to get off your chest. You can send it into the Eye Consultants of North Dakota Text Club. That's at 35270. Had a number of things I was wanting to get to today, including, mail-in ballots seem to be okay in Pennsylvania this year when you've got the Republican primary going on, because they're saying, look, we got to wait for all these mail-in ballots. We got to count every single one. They weren't ringing the same bell, say, in 2020 when mail-in ballots needed to be counted, so we can talk about that. The FM diversion court case, that was reported just the other day. We could get some thoughts on that. Also, you just heard Paul Juergens of the KFGO News Center on a variety of things. Obviously, if we do have any new information about the event, the tragic event that happened here in Fargo, West Fargo, and now in Clay County, why don't we get the known situation with that 24-year-old Fargo suspect? We'll let you know. But you also heard about the campaign finance disclosures that were filed for the mayoral race going on. $117,000 for Shannon Royce-Jones, 55 of that coming from her own checkbook. Hakun Nabar coming in second with, I think, about 32,000. That surprised you at all that Hakun Nabar has outraised incumbent Mayor Tim Mahoney? All of that's on the table. Whichever one you want to go with, I'm here for you. I'm Tyler Axis, and you're listening to Afternoons Live on KFGO. If you've missed any of our conversations, as we've been trying to get as many of these mayoral candidates and the city commission candidates on, wherever you get your podcasts, or if you just want to go to kfgo.com, click on that podcast page, you can find them all right there. Yesterday, in fact, we had Hakun Dabar on, and I'll get back to that in just a moment because I see our news director, Paul Juergens, comes into the KFGO studio. Paul, we got more information on what's going on?
Just hung up with Clay County Sheriff Mark Empting in relation to this shooting that began at the Plaza Azteca restaurant in South Fargo earlier this afternoon. Extended pursuit into Clay County. Sheriff Empting says the suspect, a 24-year-old Fargo man, is deceased, and self-inflicted gunshot wound is what Sheriff Empting told me. So
there we are. That's the latest.
The suspect in the shooting of a 23-year-old Fargo woman and her 8-month-old child, both hospitalized.
Tragic. Jerry, I appreciate the update there. And that's why when we're getting messages in from people saying, well, he's in custody, and that's why we wait to hear confirmation from law enforcement. And as you just heard, reported deceased, self-inflicted gunshot wound, 24-year-old Fargo man that did the shooting at Plaza Azteca, wounded a 23-year-old woman, shot and wounded, critical but stable condition, as last we heard on the 23-year-old woman, an 8-month-old. Contemplate that for a moment. An 8-month-old child also wounded. Reports are that child is also in stable condition. And to hear, as it was described from Don Haney, who was on scene at Plaza Azteca, who was speaking with Chief Zabolski about this, that shots were fired both inside that restaurant, which if you've been near Plaza Azteca, you know that is quite busy at most times of the day in which those doors are open. Thankfully, no more other individuals were struck, but that shots continued outside as she ran. That suspect fled. Stolen car, obviously, as you heard. That in a pursuit from Moorhead east into Clay County, where we do now know after a accident of that same vehicle, as was reported earlier, that the 24-year-old suspect is deceased. Self-inflicted gunshot wound is what was told to us just now. Paul Juergens giving you that latest information. So that situation is now done for that part. But thanks for everyone. And again, being in this chair, which I'm honored to be here, and to have you as the eyes and ears for us out in this wide-ranging signal that is 790 AM and now, of course, 100,000 watts of 104.7 FM. And everyone that had texted in with some of those tips or what you had heard, I hope you understand why I did not go with those, whether it was because of an email that you got from your employer. Certainly there was a lot of information coming in that has not been, do I dare say, accurate when it comes to some of the school situation as well, and was first reported there. And I'm sure that there are stories to tell from parents and those students that were in those West Fargo schools. But we hold off until we have things confirmed. But I do very much appreciate you sending in what you can. And whether that's bat 35270, or if you always call into the Laney studio line at 237-5948. And today, a lot of you have been doing that and visiting with my producer, Eric Johnson. I want to thank him for gathering that information before we go on air with that, just because stuff like this, very important to get it right and not just get it first. So, again, now that we have confirmation that right from law enforcement through our KFGO news team that the situation does appear to have been over. 24-year-old Fargo suspect deceased in Clay County. I'll get you this weather update from Too Tall Tom Schmansky. We'll save a lot of this for, well, I guess another day. In fact, I'll have an afterthought on the Drive Time News with Jack Sunday. He's going to be coming in here in just a little bit. Got the Drive Time News. He's going to steer you all the way into Couch Potato Radio. That's at 6 o'clock with Derek Hansen. Little KFGO today. And Coast to Coast, all your goblins, ghouls, all that's coming up later tonight. Update on your Minnesota Twins. Looks like they're just scoring another run. It is now 9. Check that. 10-2 Minnesota Twins over the Oakland A's. They are in the top of the 6th right now. I'm Tyler Axis, and you are listening to Afternoons Live on KFGO. I also want to give a shout out to the KFGO news team, Don Haney, Paul Juergens, Madison Quinn. There is a reason why KFGO is number one for news, and there's a reason why you tune in to KFGO whenever news like this happens, because they get you the facts. They get you everything you need to know. There's a reason why that trophy case out right in the KFGO lobby has the most awards in it, bar none, in any station across this upper Midwest. They are top notch. And I think they proved that yet again today by covering this situation. You know, we got all the awards out there, and it's because of the coverage that they are able to provide right here on KFGO. So you've got Paul Juergens, you've got Don Haney, you got Madison Quinn, who've been all over this. And, of course, you can go to KFGO.com. You can check out some of the videos of this tragic incident that Madison Quinn is able to put up. And, of course, Don Haney going on out there and getting all that information from Sobolski and all the other law enforcement out there as well. Again, there's a reason why they're number one, and there's a reason why you tune in, because they're able to get all that to you right here. Honored to work with this award-winning team of those very same individuals. And, of course, now we add into that Tasha Carvel that gets you all the inside information, including the information that no one else has even covered, because they were first on that as well when it comes to the campaign disclosures of how much money is going to flood it into these campaigns right here in the city of Fargo. So, again, I want to give them a shout-out for their coverage. Number one, most awards in the area. 237-5948, that's Laney's studio line. You can text me at 35270. That's the Eye Consultants of North Dakota. We'll have more on a variety of these things tomorrow as well, and I encourage you to keep it locked in here, as you always do when there's breaking news. Paul Juergens will get you the latest here at the top of the hour. Drive Time News is going to be coming up with Jack Sunday as well. We'll talk about these campaign finance reports as first reported here on KFGO from that news team, because they actually did the work, put the requests in, wrote the article, brought it to you over these very airwaves. That's number one throughout the area on KFGO. And the fact that you've got candidates pumping in $55,000 of their own money to be mayor, yeah, that's a news item we'll talk about. Plus, if you dig through these reports, which you can find at KFGO.com, it's pretty interesting and telling to see who's donated to which candidate, especially when you think about development, when you think about all those special interests as well. So we'll break that all down, and you can catch all that from the KFGO news team. Jack Sunday's in the KFGO studio. Got the Drive Time News coming up. Couch Potato Radio going to be following that a little bit later on. Twins are pouring it on right now, Jack. I think it was 11-2 last I peered up here. So
that's great.
That's not bad. We'll take that.
Yeah. Well, today on the Drive Time News, of course, the shooting at the restaurant in the south side of town will be on the top of the news, I'm sure. And we will also have our usual suspects. Too Tall Tom will be here, as well as Paul Juergens and Paul Leintz with news and traffic, respectively. And Mike Williams will be with us.
Oh, yeah.
And I've entitled this Approval Voting 101. And we only have about 5 minutes with Mike, and maybe he can explain some of the ins and outs of it and the odds setting and things like that. It's almost become like a Las Vegas game, you know.
Well, we were having a conversation after the debate, of course, because our news team was able to put that together here as well, about what is the proper strategy. You know, I mean, now you got this. Do you do the bullet voting if you really want that one candidate, or do you really sprinkle it all? I'll be curious what Mike has to say about that.
Well, you know, you might want to vote for somebody who you know might attract the kind of voter that would appeal to a council person that you don't care for. Yeah, you know, so if you vote for them, that perhaps takes away a vote from that candidate already seated.
It's a whole new ball game here. Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, we're told a bunch of things how this would be so great. Not everyone's there, but I'm interested to learn a little bit more about it.
I tell you what, that debate that KFGO put on at the Sanctuary Event Center I was just glad I was able to be there to see how well it went and how well spoken so many of the candidates were, as a matter of fact. And I kind of took a liking to some of the not so well spoken ones too. You know, well, y'all, dang, I'd maybe have a beer with him, but that's not on the ballot. So Mike Williams will be in, and we'll get a basic primer on approval voting. And of course, we'll have for sports or ag news. We'll have updates every quarter hour from the KFGO News Center, and another ride with Joel Heitkamp and
the whole gamut coming up here at 5 o'clock is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Jack Sunday, he's got the drive. That's kicking off in about 5 minutes' time here, and that's going to be following the KFGO News Center as well, because we've got more of those updates to you. And I get it, it's one of the reasons you keep it locked in why KFGO is number one is because of this fantastic team that is out there getting you all you need to know, coming in on after hours to get you all the latest information. Others jealous that they've never been asked to be a part of that team. There's no doubt about that. That's coming up 5 minutes time. Tomorrow, we got a full lineup for you. I mean, we're talking everything from Audibles, brought to you by Don's Car Wash. Put a smile on your car and on your face. We got Spencer Wirt, the Meat Dude. That's also brought to you by Audubon Meats. If you have not been on out to Audubon Meats, well, it's under new ownership. Everyone's talking about the ribs. You got that. Devil's Lake Tourism is going to be joining us as well. Open water, the docks are in. Quite frankly, people are having a lot of luck up there. And we've got Proof Artisan Distillers. Joel Kath, our friend of the show here, all those great locally made products. We're talking gins, vodkas. We had mint juleps we talked about just over the last couple of weeks when the Kentucky Derby was underway. He's going to be over here. They've got a lot of events coming up. In fact, this weekend is the Fargo Marathon, and they're encouraging people, if you're out there, stop on in. They're going to be located, well, quite frankly, where the tap room is down there, a distillery on 4th Avenue. So Joel will tell you all about that, what you could expect. If you just got done running those 26 miles, 13 miles, or if you're just doing the 5K, it doesn't matter. You're all invited to get on down there, and he'll invite you personally tomorrow. But that is tomorrow, and that means that's it for me today. I'm Tyler Axis, your host here on Afternoons Live. I'll be back for you tomorrow, starting at 2 o'clock, all the way to that 5 o'clock punch-out. Till then, you take care and drive home safely. I'll check in tomorrow right here, 7:90 a.m., 94.1 FM and 104.7 FM, KFGO.